So you don't have to go and use a credit card to bridge that gap for you. You have actual cash in the bank that you can go and use that. Now, what emergency fund is not for, it is not for Christmas when everything is on sale and you're like, well, I'm going to get something for them.
Because
but
we buy for ourselves too, right?
I'm going to get something for me. That's what it's not for.
Welcome. This is For Better and Worth,
the podcast where we don't believe you have to sacrifice your relationship while you grow and build your net worth.
We are your hosts.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Ericka Young. And we're so glad you're joining us today.
All right, y'all. Let's get into it. Hey, babe. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm a little tired because I did some housework already. And that takes some stuff out of you. You know what I mean?
I know. I know how it is. And we both got some exercise in.
That in particular. Oh my gosh. I did a class today. It's been years since I've done this class. Class like this. So it was energizing. It was fun.
Look, we talk about relationships and money, but we're also focused on keeping ourselves in good shape.
Yes. So you need to come with me next time to spin class.
You went to spin, but I actually went on the actual spin. I went on the actual ride of the bike.
Yeah, you're more of a bike rider than I am, but
yeah.
We'll go together sometimes.
Got a little 10-piece in today. But hey, we're so glad to be back at it and talking about, things that matter.
Yeah, this is important. I told you before we started that this is a pet peeve of mine. And so I figured we needed to bring it on to the podcast because if it bothers me, there's something more that needs to be shared and said.
I think this should bother everybody, talking about this. And we're going to talk about, what are you saving for?
Yeah.
Everybody tells you to save, but what are you saving for? And really, how do you go about doing it?
Yeah.
So I think it's a combination of things that we need to get into and talk about. So
yeah, I think that financial planners and financial experts and influencers are always talking about save, save, save. And I think the problem with that, it's not bad. Obviously, we believe that saving is important.
Yes.
But if you don't know what you're saving for, what's the point, right? So, and the other thing here is our daughter brought up to me about her own quote unquote emergency fund. And she said, what am I saving for? She literally asked me that question. And I said, this is for the inevitable emergencies that come up, for the unexpected.
Right.
So if you're specifically saving for an emergency, you technically don't want to use it. But the fact that she asked me that question made it even more important for us to talk about it. So I just said, you know what, let's do it.
I think there are so many benefits of savings.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a number of different areas that we want to talk about that, you should be saving in. And I think when you talk about savings, though, people really have to be intentional,
Mm-hmm.
about what they're doing and how they're doing. And even in our daughter's case, why you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's nothing like saying, well, why am I saving when you're not in the midst of a need?
Sure.
Or when you're not in the midst of an emergency that is taking place,
Mm-hmm.
and then that emergency or that need arises, and you're trying to figure it out. Like, oh man, maybe I should have been setting something aside just in case.
Yeah.
So let's talk about it. So what's the first? Now these are in no particular order either. These are areas that we think that are important, and so we're just gonna talk about them. But what's one of the first areas you want to get into?
Well, I mean, obviously, emergency funds, regardless of the other ones that we mentioned, should come first.
Yes.
Right. So, and I think that's the confusion that our daughter had a little bit is, why am I doing this? And I think a lot of people have that question when they use credit cards as their emergency fund.
Ooh,
that is, a lot of people are like, why do I need to do this? Or they'll say, I can't get to that specific number. Like, it seems too far-fetched.
Because they may look at the number as too big.
Yes.
And how am I going to do that?
Right.
When, steady wins the race.
Right. And
slow and steady.
And I think emergencies it's a thing that people don't want to think about, but
Hmm.
let's define it. Okay, so what would you say are the things that you would actually use an emergency fund for?
Um, an emergency fund, I would say, should be used for, let's say you experience a job loss and there was a need to bridge the gap between your current position and your future position or your next position. So if you had to pay, mortgage or food and transportation, I think you need an emergency fund for that. If you have, a sudden medical event that arises and it requires you to pay for care, or a car breakdown,
Hmm.
so you don't have to go and use a credit card to bridge that gap for you. You have actual cash in the bank that you can go and use that. Now, what emergency fund is not for
Come on now, let's talk about
is
that
the
part.
annual sale at Nordstrom. Okay,
Woo!
it's not for that. It is not for Christmas when everything is on sale and you're like, well, I'm gonna get something for them,
Because
but I'm gonna
we
get
buy for ourselves too,
right. I'm gonna
right?
get something for me. That's
Yeah.
what it's not for. You need to
Hmm.
plan for those things.
Yeah.
Emergency funds are really for the unexpected.
Yeah. And you don't want to use it. I mean, you want to get into the habit of not needing it, right? So if it's an emergency, it's literally an emergency. The other thing is when an emergency arises and you need to use it,
Mm-hmm.
put it back.
Right.
This is not a
Right.
depleting account. This is an account that needs to remain at a certain
Right.
level at minimum in order for you to consider it, fully funded.
I even said, like, for us, maybe we have our fully funded emergency fund, and then we have this other little smaller savings over here that we could tap into for different things. But then I said, no, we just plan for those things, so we don't need this
Yeah.
other little savings account.
And I think that is separate from like you mentioned it, and I'll just reiterate, like, setting aside for the holidays. Like, you can do that. Set it aside.
Mm-hmm.
And we specifically have a Christmas account and we set aside money every single month for that. But that is not an emergency because guess what? What day does Christmas fall on
December
every year?
25th.
Okay, we know.
We all know it's coming.
So it's not unexpected. We literally know when it is. So you plan for those expected things that are throughout the year. So that could be another thing that people say for, and I call it non-monthly account. Christmas, or when people
Mm-hmm.
have auto insurance that comes out once or twice a year, but not every month, or
That's different.
you
That's
know,
different than an emergency fund. Those are
exactly,
things that are coming,
exactly.
and you just need to plan for them. And so
Hmm.
saving for your annual insurance payment, or your biannual insurance payment, or for Christmas, that's different.
Yeah.
You can save for that, and we'll even talk about that,
Hmm.
as one of the areas. But emergency funds specifically, it has that E word in front of it for a reason, emergency. And so, how would you say, how much should ideally be saved
Hmm.
for an emergency fund?
3 to 6 months of expenses. And I would say for those who are self employed or who have jobs that aren't particularly stable, or if there is a little bit of uncertainty about what the future holds, you need.
Or like sporadic income, like
Correct.
realtors,
Yeah.
or
You need at least 6 months and
yeah.
or more. And here's the deal. This is looking at your budget to see what your expenses, reasonable expenses, not expenses where you're going on a vacation or where you got extra money for
Excessive
clothing.
dining out,
None of
or
that. This is your food, your shelter, medical expenses, I would say as well. Necessary
some clothing,
clothing,
yeah, some
and
clothing.
transportation, just the basics, right? Not a whole bunch of entertainment,
Maybe
etc.
not cable or
Yeah, just
internet.
what is it? So, for instance, if someone were to lose their job, what are the basics you need to keep the lights on and keep life moving
Right,
forward?
right.
And you multiply that by 3 or 6 or whatever your comfort level is.
I would say start with 3,
Yeah.
and then once you get to 3, then you can say I'm gonna add a fourth month.
Mm-hmm.
Then you can add a fifth month. And I know, like, over time, just for my own personal comfort, I'm like, look, I want to get the 12 months,
Yeah.
because I just think that if life happens or something comes along, I want the stability to have a period of time that I can bridge the gap between where I'm at today and where I'm looking to go. So
So
start with 3 months, and I say just build to your comfort level.
so let's rewind like years and years ago.
Yep.
Because when we were getting out of debt, we did not have an emergency fund. Let's be clear.
We had a little something
A
set
little something
aside.
is like 1,000 or two. We did
Yeah.
not have a
We
big.
didn't have a fully funded emergency
That's
fund.
right. We always had something in savings.
Yeah.
It was just tiny.
Yeah.
And
It was
so
enough that if the car broke down, we could probably fix it. But if it was
And
some
that
major
was
stuff, like it was like, okay, well, we're gonna have to figure it out.
so let's be honest though. Years 1 and 2 of our relationship, we didn't even have that. And we had a car breakdown that was $1,000 repair. The Cavi, the red Cavalier,
Yeah.
that had an engine that
Rolling in
needed
the
to be
Cavi, dog.
yes, that was. I thought it was a cool car. It was a 2-door Chevy
It was
Cavalier.
not
Uh,
a cool car.
Listen, I thought I was doing something when I had that car because I had it in college.
It was your car, but after we got married, somehow it ultimately became my car.
Because the woman always gets the better car,
I'm
and
rolling
yours was
around in
actually
this
better
little-
than mine.
Rolling
But
around this little 2-door Cavalier, like, how
But
did I get stuck in
let's
this?
be clear, that was after baby. Okay, the baby seat could not be put in that Cavalier.
Oh, yes, it was because I used
Okay.
to pick Faith up and put her in the back seat of the Cavalier.
Not
Yeah, see, you're not gonna get me on this one
okay, all right.
because I know. Because
Anyway, so moving on. Moving on. But we
don't bring up stuff you don't want to talk about.
it was true facts. I walked into that one, didn't I?
I rode the Cavi for 2.5 years.
Yes, but it had broke down, and we did not have the cash to pay for that repair. It was about $1,000, and we sat on it for a while because we just. And so here's the deal, like. This is why it's so important. No one prepares for $1,000 emergency. Like no one wants that to happen. No one wants
Right, we
something.
didn't know the engine was gonna go out in the car.
And how we navigated was to not use it, carpool for a season until the money.
We saved the money.
Right. But that's uncomfortable. It's
Yeah.
inconvenient, right? Thankfully we had that option, but I think that this is why, it's one of the reasons why you have an emergency fund even when you are in debt.
And I think the important thing there, like using this example, is that we had 2 cars. So we were fortunate to have 2 cars at that time.
Sure.
And one broke down and we didn't have the money to pay for it. We had some of the money, but we didn't have the full amount to pay for it. So instead of going and using credit cards, we made the decision that okay,
Right.
we're going to figure something else out.
That was the deciding factor.
Right.
Yes.
And we said, so we're going to carpool together because we didn't work too far from one another. And then we were going to just save the cash and pay cash for it for the repair. And that's exactly what we did because it was going to take some time to repair the car. So we were going to be without it for a while anyway. So we were like, okay, we're going to figure it out. And then we paid for it. And then we knew, well, look, this can't happen again. And we have to have an emergency fund because we could have got the car repaired quicker had we had the money.
Or had we decided that we wanted to use credit. Now, I will be honest and say I do not remember that I personally had enough credit available to utilize that on one card. You know what I mean? Like you get into the nitty gritty. This is why you need to always have an emergency fund because if it gets squirrely, like you really don't even have the
Right.
available credit. You
That's
don't have
something
enough
else.
cash. It's going to take you more than 1 month because you don't have the freedom to save $500 in 1 month, right? Like those kinds of things complicate life. And I understand life happens. We have experienced job loss. We have experienced obviously having 2 children, loss in our family, lots of different, things that would be considered emergencies or a shift in your life that is costly.
Mm-hmm.
And without that safety net or security blanket of a bit of cash set aside, all of that emergency can be heightened at a level
I
where
mean, that's
it
definitely,
feels
it creates a lot more
chronic.
stress.
Yes, it's
So
stressful. And then you don't make good decisions when you're
yeah.
stressed.
But
Period.
I think you guys are getting the point, and I think we got the point at that time. And so I think as you're building your emergency fund, you got to be realistic. You got to set some realistic goals. And you know, whether you're starting at zero or you can front load it with 500, $1,000, you got to get that first month down, you know, of your expenses, and then get the second month and then the third month. And so be realistic in what you're going to do and set yourself up for success.
Right.
Like set up an automatic, you know, draft from your checking to your
Every
savings.
month, same time, same amount, make it
Right.
easy.
So when you get paid, pay yourself first. Then you won't even account for that money because it'll come right out of your check or your checking account at the beginning. So then when you get in there and start spending, you're not accounting for that money. And it's still there. You're not losing it. You're
Right.
just putting it away to set yourself up
Yeah.
so that you're not stressed out or worried or trying to figure it out because now you've got the money saved up. So,
Yeah. And this is so important because only 40% of Americans actually have at least 3 months of expenses saved.
man,
So that's not
that's crazy.
a healthy number. And there are many reasons why that occurs. One, I would say we don't prioritize it, but I think credit card usage or knowing you have that as your fallback can be a reason why people decide that this isn't important for them. And so I think, this is a reset, I would say. Just, see how much, if you do have an emergency fund, it would be great to see how many months you
Yeah, you
actually
already
have
have saved
right
up.
now. If you have 2 months, awesome, great start. If you got a ways to go, okay, how can you restructure, right? But I think we need to increase that number.
Yeah.
40% is not enough.
So let's get into another area
Yep.
that's important. So another area that's important to save, and one of those what you're saving for is saving for college. If you have children and you want to be of help and you want to, you know, ensure that they don't end up with student loan debt, you need to be saving for college. And like we said, this is in no particular order, but these are just the important things that you should be saving for. And there's a few different ways you could actually save for college. And, you know, a lot of people know about 529s. That's one way to be saving for college. And even if you're not fully funding it, you can be putting something away
Hmm.
for college.
Yeah. And I would say that one of the biggest things that you need to think about is know, what does it cost to go to college? I mean, it's
Yes.
very expensive. Even in state schools right now with room and board plus tuition is solidly 20, 25, maybe $30,000 per year all
In-state
in.
tuition.
That's just in state. And so it's a big, big nut to crack. And it is, I think, a really good conversation to have with anyone that is going to be a part of helping with these kids going to school. Is, what are you actually going to contribute? I would say a really good exercise to do here is to make a target. Like, how much are you looking to save for college? Be it $50,000 or $100,000. I mean, that's 100,000 is barely going to get one kid fully through 4 years of higher
Look,
education.
I think before you even get there, you need to sit down and have a come to Jesus meeting with your child and say, look, let's talk about, you know, the potential of where you can go to school, what school actually costs, so they get invested as well. Because I remember when our oldest was going to college and she was looking at like schools out of state and they were like fashion and design schools. And I was like, these schools are $40,000-$50,000 a year.
Crazy.
And it didn't
For
register.
tuition, not even living
Right, it
expenses.
didn't register with her. And then when she started to think about it, she was like, well, man, this doesn't make sense. And so I
Hmm.
think you've got to get real with, you know, your child that you're trying to support and help in that situation so they can also be realistic in the expectations of where they're going to go to school, how much school is going to cost, and then what their contribution can be to that as well.
And I would say don't wait until high school. I think the best age to really start talking about college is in middle school or junior high, honestly, because they can grasp the concept. And this isn't, You're not waiting until they're 16. I think one of the biggest mistakes parents can make in this area is waiting until the child is within 2 years of college before they
That's
actually
too
have the
late.
conversation.
Yeah, that's way too
And
late.
I understand that not every child is college bound, and those are things before they even turn 16. That is fair. I have had clients who they know their kid at the age of 12, they might do a vocational trade, or they have some business idea that they're going to explore, or they know that they want to take a year off of high school and kind of explore the world. They're clear that there may be a different path, or even the military. You
I
know.
think I think that's the good thing though about a 529 is because if you save for one kid and they decide not to go to school,
Yeah.
you can transfer that savings to another kid.
Or for yourself if you want to go back to
Yeah.
school.
And now with the way the laws have changed, you can transfer that to a Roth IRA in the name of your child. So now you help them set them up. So there's flexibilities there. And I just think that's one of many tools that you can use. And if you're going to be saving for college, you can explore what all those options look like for you, and that may work for you. But I think that's another area that you need to be saving for. So,
And I think that in this case, and in probably the next saving arena that we're going to discuss, always talk to a professional, because I think if we do this
absolutely.
all by ourselves, we think we know stuff and we don't know nothing. Well, I mean, the laws change, the amounts that you can contribute change. Some of these have tax advantages if
Yep.
you invest in them. And so having these people in your life is really important. And so I just wanted to add that because I feel like that was one of the things we did early on. Even when we weren't ready, we talked to a financial advisor before we had any money to invest. We didn't even, we
But
talked,
we got clear.
we got clear
on
and we got
what
answers.
pathway we
Yeah.
would take and the benefits of that.
Yeah.
Even when we moved states, we found out shifting the 529 from one state to another state-based fund, we had tax benefits in that regard. So definitely, that's a good point. That's good advice. Seek the input of a trained professional.
Yeah, you don't need
somebody you trust.
Yeah.
And interview them. And until you're comfortable with somebody, don't go with them. But
Yeah.
what's another area that we should get into talking about savings?
My favorite.
It's
Honestly,
the biggie. It's the big one.
This is my favorite because I would say in our relationship, I'm much more the person who really wanted to, like, I have pushed for retirement savings. I'm like, how can we max it out? How can we do this? And I'm to the point where I think I've annoyed you a couple of times.
Well, I'm like, hold on. Now,
What?
You talking about
What?
you were like I wasn't on board or something.
I wasn't.
You know what I'm
I never
saying?
said those words. See, listen. Listen.
I was like, I'm about that retirement life too.
Now, but there have been moments, and there have been several moments in our relationship where you were adamant about increasing our emergency fund. And
Yes.
even in today's season,
Yes.
the fact that earlier you said 12 months of emergency fund, and me myself, I don't care about that. So it's not that you don't care about retirement. It's just that for me, the retirement has always been like I'm willing to sacrifice things for it, and you are willing to sacrifice certain things for to have a healthy, large emergency fund.
That's why the yin and yang work for us.
That's right.
We need both.
We do.
And it's so funny that like I feel like women want the security of a good savings. And it's been important to have that. And to, whether it was important to you, I knew it was important. And there have been phases when I was about focused on savings, and then later on, God revealed what we were saving
Absolutely.
for, and it was like it was a revelation to both of us.
It was
'Cause we
godly wisdom.
we were like, man, see, that's what we were saving for, or that's what we were doing. And sometimes you just got to follow that guide that tells you, hey, maybe don't stop savings, because we never stopped saving for retirement, but maybe we turned up the savings for emergencies, a little bit. And then we just continued with the retirement savings until we got to a point where we could fully max out the 401ks and we could do Roths and do all those different things. So, but savings is it's a big area
Yeah.
for us both. So
I would say one of the reasons why retirement is high on my priority list, having enough dollars in that account or maxing it out the best way we can each year, is because I honestly had a real fear and concern that I would end up having to take care of parents. Like I was concerned that years ago, 20 years ago, I was concerned that because of the habits of my parents who are divorced, which means two households,
right,
I had this in the back of my mind that at some point I would need to have enough money to ensure that I could take care of them.
we could take care of us plus take care of
Yeah.
them.
And so it was rooted in the fear, but wisdom tells you to take care of yourself so that in the future you have money. And so you save for that eventual time where you don't want to work. And so thankfully, I use that fear in a positive way. I don't think that that should be, everybody's
That's
story, but I
yeah.
think that because I think just saving for retirement is wisdom, regardless of why you started it. But I know for a fact that that is what fueled me behind the scenes, to ensure that we were really aggressive so that we could have a future that we could honestly be proud of.
I
And
think that's a vulnerable point that you bring up because it was rooted in fear, but it wasn't detrimental for us
sure,
because
absolutely.
we were saving over the course of time. We might have started out doing the company match to make sure we're not leaving free money
Oh,
on the
yeah.
table. But then we started getting to the point where we were, going beyond just the match to doing a percent of our annual income to a point where we were doing the maximum that we could do as far as 401k. So no matter where you're at, don't despise small beginnings.
Hmm.
If it's 3% and it's company match, do that 3% at minimum. If it's 6%, do that 6% at minimum so that you get the free money that the company is putting on the table. And then, maybe set it up to do that 1% adjustment per year. So, you bite it off in small increments until you build up to the point where you can reach the maximum that you can put away for retirement.
Hmm.
Because we talked about this, and I personally feel like, though these are in no order, this comes before saving for college for
For
me.
sure. For
Because if
sure.
I can't take care of
Absolutely.
me, then how am I expected to take care of you?
Yeah. No, I mean, and the rule of thumb is, frankly, you can get, we don't want you to, but
You can get student
you can
loans,
get student loans for a college education and over time pay it off. You cannot
but
get
I can't
any
get a
loans.
retirement loan.
Absolutely. And you better hope that they have a room for you in their house if you don't have any money for retirement. Period.
Right.
Right?
So I
So,
guess I guess if you save for college and you invest in a high value career with them, like maybe that's your retirement. But
no. You know
no,
why?
I'm
Because
not taking the chances on that.
absolutely, because honestly, I don't have enough kids for that. See, you gotta have about 10 kids and take the chance that somebody love you enough to have you living in their house with them. We don't have enough kids. We got 2 kids, and I'm gonna tell you that I'm
It's
not
a
so.
50-50 chance,
Hey, and you know what? I don't like those chances. I mean, let's be honest.
So we said we're gonna bet on
That's
ourselves.
right. We gonna have enough money so if y'all jokers decide y'all don't want to take care of us, we
Right.
can take
We
care of
gonna be
us.
we gonna be good.
Yes, we cause what is it, baby?
We
We all
all
we
we got.
got. So do you feel like there was I'm just curious. I mean, I'm kind of putting you on the spot because you said that I was vulnerable and I'm like, it was real. I feel like I've said that many times that I was concerned I was gonna
Why
have to
you
take
always
care of my
trying to
parents
put me on the spot?
because I put myself on the spot. It's team effort. Do you feel like there was any a
You
fear?
put you on the spot.
True. Do you feel like there was any kind of fear or reason why you want such a hefty emergency fund? That is not the wise. Like I don't want to hear the wise answer. I just want to hear the real answer.
No. I think if it's a real answer, I feel like over the years we've been extremely blessed. We've had great careers and great job opportunities, but in the back of my mind, there's always that slight imposter syndrome where you
Mm.
feel like, man, I'm here, but how long can I stay here?
Yeah.
Or how long can I be at this level or in a particular position or organization? So it's like, look, I'm going to hedge my bets.
Right.
And so I'm going to make sure I have a robust emergency fund so that if this ship sails or it goes off the rails, look, I'm going to have some time to figure it out.
Yeah.
And so if I'm just being real, I thought about that like
Yeah.
years ago, as I was making different career moves and progressions. And though things were going well, I was in the back of my mind always saying, okay, how long is this gonna be
Yeah.
smooth sailing like this? So
That's real. I think I appreciate you saying that because I think men probably have that as a challenge that they face routinely in being provider or taking care of their household and what it looks like to
yeah,
be a
and,
man.
and I think that you and I work well as partners, but deep down, I've always had a provider
Yeah.
mentality
Right.
where,
Mhm.
no matter what you went out and earned income wise,
Yeah.
in my mind, I wasn't relying on that.
Right.
I was relying on what I could go out and do. And somebody may say, well, that's very chauvinistic of you, but it's just the way I felt because as a provider, I always wanted to be able to step up and hustle and grind and provide for my family. And then whatever you did was just like bonus. It put us over the top. And so for me, it was always like, okay, let me make sure we got a solid savings. So if something comes up, life doesn't change
Mhm.
for a period of time. And if life doesn't change for 12 months with a substantial savings, that gives me time to find other
Sure.
opportunities, via employment, or if I was going to start a business or
Mhm.
something. Now I've got a year to ramp it up before we would feel any sort of effects. So I just felt like it was using wisdom to
Mhm.
try and have that set aside in addition to saving for retirement because I love my kids, but them jokers, man. I'm a bet on me and I'm gonna invest in them.
Yeah.
And I tell them, I say, look, my goal is for you to take care of you.
Yeah.
And so, but that's
That's
really
interesting.
why I would say that.
I think that truly financially speaking, we're better together. Like I feel that we've done far beyond what either one of us would have done on our own. Um I
Speak for yourself,
oh my
cause
god, you know what? Well,
I was gonna go out there and get it.
no. Absolutely not. Okay. So, cuz you were the spender in the beginning of our relationship,
Yeah, I was young, I had to
you
be
were the
fly.
spender but
I mean, I still,
I got a Yukon and he had to put rims on that joker. Like I'm driving it. Why does it have to have so this was back in the day. But whatever the
right.
case, when and
Had to
we
be
were
rolling on dubs.
right. And so granted we were out of debt, but I'm like, why we got to spend $2,000 on this? It just didn't make sense.
Look,
But
that's
anyway,
back in the day because rims like $10,000 now.
yeah.
So
So but anyway, the point is we're better together. Right?
right,
Hello?
right. Oh, there we go.
Do I got to pull this out
There we
of him?
go. There we go. For
But
sure.
we're a good team. I think and that's what my hope is that you can figure out how to be that team to get where you need to be. But back to the retirement point, here is what I think is so concerning and why this is a really important thing for people to prioritize on their savings list is that only 25% of people feel confident that they have enough money to
Man,
retire at the age of 65.
that's actually sad. That's a sad statistic
One fourth.
that's a sad statistic to think about. People are going to work for 30, 40 years
Yeah.
and they're going to get to retirement age and still have a level of
Yeah.
uncertainty.
Yeah.
That's sad. And you can't say that, well, it's only because people have high incomes or they have, professional white collar job, whatever it is, because there are teachers out there that don't make a whole lot that have $1 million+ when they retire. There's police officers
Yeah.
that I know who have been police officers for years that they have a solid retirement and pensions, and they've just made different decisions and they've made better decisions. So you can do it at a bunch of different levels. How many times have we seen the news and they say that there was this person who was a janitor and they lived this reclusive life, and then they find out this person got like $2.5 million they've been sitting on because they just been socking money away.
So 2 books to read. One is The Millionaire Next Door, and subsequently The Millionaire Woman Next Door. And in the findings of at least The Millionaire Next Door, most of the people who were literally considered to be the average Joe were people who were actually in education, and they were unassuming millionaires. And The Wealthy Barber. The Wealthy Barber is a great book.
The Wealthy Barber is good, but we recommend in books. I got to throw
Come on.
The Richest Man in Babylon.
Okay, one too.
Those are 3 basics. That you read those, they can make a big difference in your life.
And they're classics. They're old, and that's all good. Right. You know, we can throw out some new ones if you want to, but I think that, you know, they speak to, you don't have to be wealthy or in the top 1 or 10 or even 20%.
Right.
You just need to be consistent.
Find success.
You just need to be consistent with what you're doing. And so I think, let's talk about some rules of thumbs with retirement. One is don't ever touch the funds. Don't ever take the money out.
Don't take those loans. Don't do it.
Don't take loans. Don't take withdrawals.
No.
When you go to a new company, take those dollars with you.
Or roll it into IRA.
Yes, a traditional IRA. Like, make sure that these funds stay for retirement and not for other stuff in your life.
Don't take that buyout and take all the tax implications and hits. Don't do it.
Right. So that
I've left a couple of companies, and I have 401ks, and I had an IRA, and I made that my dump fund. And I would leave a company, I would dump my 401k into that. I would go to another company. If I left there, I would dump it into that. And so you have to create that so you don't go and waste those funds that you've been spending years developing and growing.
Yeah.
So,
and the longer it stays in there, the more it's going to grow. And the other small rule of thumb, but is very important, is always get your free money at your employer. You mentioned it. Get your matching dollars. If you're working for someone and they have a 401k plan for you, always, always, always get the free money. Even when you're in debt. We did it. We were doing this while we were in debt. We were like, we're committed. We're going to get this free money.
At minimum.
And we're going to get ourselves out of debt. It might have taken a little bit longer to get out of debt, but I will promise you, because we have been saving for 25 years, it makes a difference.
I told you all, progress over perfection. So keep making progress.
Yep.
But let's get into this last area of savings, and it's really saving for large purchases. And you guys, on our previous episode, we talked about, we took our dream trip.
Whoop, whoop.
We took a trip to South Africa, and we saved for that purchase. And it wasn't going into savings. It was like just, hey, we're going to do this. So we planned for it. We budgeted for it. And we were able to do that with no debt.
Yeah.
Fully paid for it, funded it, cash. And so I think when you're going to make a big purchase, whether it's you're going to buy a home and you need to put 1% down, or you're going to buy a new car and you want to try and save, you know, we would advocate for you to pay cash for it. But I know everybody can't do that. But maybe you go from putting a large down payment to you pay half of it, to you get to a point where you can go and buy a car, but plan for it. And maybe you wait, because it's okay to save. And I said the dreaded word, right? Wait.
Lord have mercy.
It's okay to drive a hoopty for a little time, a little while you save.
That is not what the people want to hear, honey.
And bam, you know, you bust out with your new whip that you paid cash for, and it's gonna drive different when you pay cash for it.
I think that, first of all, you said it all where it concerns large purchases. I think it's hard for folks to conceptualize what that looks like because we want it right now.
It's now generation.
Yeah. So we don't have to get into it, or do you feel like we have to say anything else about large purchases?
I think it speaks for itself.
So I want to get into make it worth it. How do we make it worth it?
Absolutely.
All of this, in my opinion, requires a level of delayed gratification. So you make it worth it by prioritizing your emergency fund, your retirement, kids' college or what have you, whatever it is you're doing, and you're delaying something that you want, desire, right now in order to have a future version of yourself. So I just think about what it requires, the discipline that it requires to delay some gratification. It doesn't mean forever. It just means for a season while you're
Not
building good
now,
habits.
but later.
Yeah, that part right there. What about you? How do you make it worth it?
You have to be intentional. And if you're going to do any of these things, you have got to be intentional. If we're talking about retirement, set it up with your savings account for it to be automatic. If we're talking about emergencies, set it up with your savings account to be automatic. If we're talking about retirement, set it up so it's automatically drafted from your pay before you even see your pay.
Or set up automatic increases once a year too. You can do that as well.
Yes, that 1% per year.
Turn that on.
And no matter what it is, whatever area we've talked about, you have to be intentional, because if you're not, if you say, I'm going to do it after I get paid, you'll find a reason or a way not to do it, because you'll get paid and you'll start looking at, well, I need to pay this, or I need to pay this, or I want to do this.
Yeah.
And then you get away from the plan. And that's the thing about having a plan, is that you have to be intentional about how you go about executing that plan. So that's how I say make it worth it. So I think we put it all out there today.
Yeah, this was great. I enjoyed it, and I'm hopeful that we're going to build some more savers after this.
Right.
So,
We changing these generational trees
hey,
out there.
let's go.
Plant some new trees, people.
All right, babe. Well, until next time.
We're out. Thank you for spending some of your time with us today.
We appreciate all of your support. So be sure to subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you listen to this podcast.
You can find us on Instagram at For Better and Worth.
And sign up to receive our free guide, The 7 Reasons Your Money Relationship Isn't Working with Your Partner, on forbetterandworth.com.
Until next time, we're out of here.